As I'm sure you guys already know, glazing or layering is everything in watercolor. To succeed at watercolor, you have to learn to glaze. However, there is one aspect of glazing that is also just as crucial. It's a problem most beginners face and even some expert artists struggle with. What could that be? Well, stay tuned. In watercolor terms, it's called transparency and opacity. What does that mean? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed while you're painting a chalky film in your painting? When I first encountered this, I honestly thought my paper was rubbing into my paint. But when I started doing some research, I found that it had nothing to do with my paper. Rather, it was the paint that I was using. So here's what I mean. Some watercolor paints are transparent. That means they sit on top of the paper and allow a lot of light to pass through them, making them vibrant and brilliant colors. However, opaque watercolor paint are the exact opposite. They allow little light to pass through and thus are less effective when layering. Also, here's another little tidbit for you. You know those paintings that are hyperrealistic with watercolor? Have you ever wondered how the artist was able to get those super rich and vibrant colors to stand out on the paper? Well, they are actually looking for transparent watercolor paints. The more transparent the paint, the better it will look in a hyper-realistic painting. So that means you're going to have to buy more professional paints to get this look. So the next question you need to ask yourself is, how does this really affect my painting? Well, it does in a lot of different ways. First, as stated earlier, it's good to know what are transparent colors and opaque colors because this will help prevent you from getting a painting that has a chalky film to it. Next, transparent colors mix really well with other watercolors. It doesn't matter whether the other color is transparent or opaque. In fact, if you mix a transparent watercolor with an opaque watercolor, it will make that opaque watercolor look less chalky. So it's good to mix the two together. Third, opaque colors, when mixed with other opaque colors, can become muddy in appearance. So if you are going for a muddy textured appearance, such as a background, then this would be great technique to mix those two together. However, if you're wanting more hyper-realism or a brighter watercolor paint on your paper, then you definitely want to stay clear of those opaque colors. Fourth, when painting an opaque color over a transparent color, that color will probably be easier to lift if you make a mistake. However, removing a transparent color that has been painted over an opaque color will be a lot harder to lift up. If you have been painting with P.H. Martin's concentrates, you have probably noticed this. Transparent colors like to dye the paper, which is great when you're painting hyperrealism. But if you make a mistake, it can be difficult to lift that color off of the paper because it stains the paper, as stated earlier. Okay, now you're probably wondering, how do I figure out whether my watercolor paint is transparent or opaque? Well, there are two ways. First, most watercolor paint companies specifically tell you whether a paint is transparent or opaque, or even semi-opaque or semi-transparent, which means, just like it sounds, the paint is somewhere in the middle. However, you can also determine this at home for yourself with a simple watercolor exercise. Simply paint a long horizontal black stroke on a scratch piece of paper, then allow it to dry. You definitely don't want to paint on this black stroke until it is dry because we don't want that color to mix in with the colors we're going to layer on top. Now, from my personal preference, I like to use Higgins black ink for this black stroke because it's permanent and no matter what I layer on top of it, once it's dry, it is going to stay on that paper. Now, after that black stroke has dried, all you have to do is take your watercolors, whichever ones that you want to use, and simply paint vertical stripes over that black stroke that's already dried. Alright, so this is all dry now, and these three on the bottom are transparent. And it's the reason why I can tell is because it actually looks like they're underneath the black line. So I'll go ahead and zoom in so you guys can see. It looks like I almost painted the black line on top of those. But then the other three, which are the blue and the kind of tan color and of course the gouache white, they all seem to lay on top of the black line. And if you look really closely, you can see kind of that chalky film that I was talking about. I'm gonna move this over a little bit. On all three of them. So that's just kind of something that you need to look for with transparent and opaque. This is a simple watercolor exercise that helps train you to figure out what your paint actually does on the paper, which will help you create better paintings in the future. I hope this video has helped you, as this information helped me about a year ago when I ran across it. And as always guys, this has been a joy and just a pleasure to do these videos for you guys. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe and comment and all that other YouTube-y stuff. And happy painting! I will see you next time.